Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm really happy to be here with such a great panel of speakers. I really see the connection of how everybody from their point of angle are working towards better patient outcomes. Our point of view is towards patient empowerment with their control and ownership of their own data. Our first focus is on clinical trials. So we are at OASYS Now the Europe's first AI-powered and real-world data-driven clinical trial recruitment, and that is fully certified. That can actually do this from the electronic health records. We can identify which patients are matched to which clinical trials, and vice versa. And what makes us really stand apart is in our unique approach to building everything privacy by design. All of us are cybersecurity nerds in our company. We go about doing everything privacy by design. We build everything patient first. We make sure for every product that we build, for every B2B organization, there is a patient interface where they can receive transparent information about what's going on with their data, with the process they're going through. And as a young startup, we have the privilege of building everything AI native. So we don't have to retrofittingly add AI to our existing solution, but actually build everything with AI at the core. And by doing everything fully certified and privacy by design, we make sure everything is done in a manner that is compliant to all the regulations. We have won European Cybersecurity Award, Netherlands Privacy Award to basically showcase how we approach this differently. But a little bit about why we do this. I always like to share why I started doing this. So I have a computer science background from TU Delft, and what really made me go out of my comfort zone of just sitting in love with the code and the technology and go to the healthcare field was I was trying to help my own mom. She has several chronic diseases and a rare disease, and she's been suffering from that for many years. And as refugees, we had to travel from country to country several times. And every time we were in a new country, my mom didn't have access to her own medical records to show her diagnosis and get the medicine she's been using for years. So she had to get re-diagnosed every time we were in a new country. And this re-diagnosis could take sometimes months. In case of her asthma, took more than a year. So she didn't have her asthma medicine for more than a year, just because she didn't have her medical records with her. And to me, as a computer science nerd, that didn't make any sense. Like, we have almost all of our data on the interwebs if we want. It was like peak Facebook time when I started working on this. I was like, we are putting everything on the internet. Somehow our health data is not available to us. Just didn't compute. No pun intended. So I went to this problem thinking about the information of my mom's disease and her health data must be somewhere. The information about all of the medicines and clinical guidelines and research input is also somewhere else. To me, it just seemed like a matching problem, right? If I build an algorithm that does the matching, I can find the best treatments for my mom, because no doctor had the time to be constantly on the search of what new treatment option is going to be fit for my mom's rare diseases. So that's sort of my background story. That sort of made me to believe that if we build a win-win-win data infrastructure, we can enable all stakeholders to actually interact with each other using this platform. So we want to be the data governance layer that connects different stakeholders together. That being said, I soon learned you can't build the infrastructure to sell as a startup. Nobody sells infra from a startup. So we decided to sort of pivot, or like zoom in, pivot, and choose a certain problem we can solve first for a group of stakeholders, and then from that start unlocking data and build a platform in the background. So I went to this problem from the point of view of patients. And for my co-founder, Sarah Okhauze, this was the other way around, from the point of view of the end users of the data. So she was working at one of the most renowned research institutes in the world, Erasmus Medical Center, working on cutting-edge science on Alzheimer and aging disease. And she didn't have access to the data to actually conduct her research for months. But the data was somewhere. So she came to this problem from the point of view of how do we make this data more accessible to the researchers. And her unique background in combining genomics and privacy, being one of the very few genomic privacy researchers in the world, enabled us to build one of the first solutions that can help hospitals and organizations worldwide to collaborate with each other to do genomic studies using deep learning. That was in collaboration with NVIDIA, actually, that we built a security layer on top of that. So that's sort of how the story of our company began. What are we doing today? Like the clinical trial part, probably a lot of people in the room are more familiar with it even than I am. I'm coming from a computer science background, but soon I learned that 85% of all of these trials are canceled or delayed due to the specific problem of finding patients in time, right? So the patients are there, the trial is ready, but just the finding part takes so much time. And it's costing pharmaceutical companies upwards of $8 million per every single day of delay, right? Because they get a patent, and by the time that the patent expires, they have to go to market as soon as possible. But this is also an operational nightmare for the trial sites. So the hospitals who have to run these trials or clinics, 2/3 of them actually fail to meet the original patient recruitment timelines, right? So it's taking them on average 13 months to find patients from their own databases. So the patient is there, the information of the patient is in a database. To be able to actually find if those patients are matched to the trial that is running at the hospital takes them average 13 months. Why? Because it's actually a manual process in most cases. They actually hold in one hand the clinical trial protocol and all the eligibility criteria that a patient needs to be matched, and they scroll through electronic health records for hours. Not a fun job to do at all. That's why it takes so much time. But why is that? Why do they have to do it manually? Well, it's because clinical notes, the electronic health records, are per definition unstructured information, right? So far, up until recently, we have not been able to actually fully utilize that data. So most of the relevant information about a patient's story is written in form of a story. It's not in an Excel sheet that you can like quickly run SQL or those kind of approaches. So this was an untapped and unlocked problem for many years. And now, as we all sitting in the room know, this is a different era, right? So large language models are to the rescue because for the first time ever, we can actually do something with this data. So it's relatively simple. This AI-powered precision matching uses all the medical guidelines and the medical knowledge that is out there. We combine it with all the past clinical trials that have taken place, the protocols, how they have performed, and the patient data. Using that, we can create an automated eligibility screening, right? So instead of going through all the thousands of patients you have in your hospital, we provide you the list, an ordered list of which patients are most likely to be actually matched, right? So it is that matching problem after all. However, to emphasize it, as we all know here, this is not just any data, this is electronic health record. This is one of the most sensitive data that we have, right? And surprisingly, already 90% of European citizens have some form of electronic health records, right? That's 400 million people's data that is available to be used to actually help them. And it's the healthcare institutes that are desperate for these AI-powered solutions, right? They are aware of this problem. But since this is a very sensitive data, the implementation of it in a privacy-first approach has been a huge challenge for many organizations. You can't just build an OpenAI ChatGPT wrapper and connect it to the electronic health record of a hospital. You just think about how to do this on-premise and all of the compliance challenges. And that's actually where we shine. So as a cybersecurity firm, this was for us the sort of bread and butter of building these AI solutions fitted for the healthcare and life science sector. This is the part that I get nerdy about, but I'll try my best to not to bore you with the details. But what I want you to remember from this slide is that we build everything compliant by design, right? So we have a sophisticated series of technologies, so not just the AI part, but all the privacy-enhancing technologies that we enable to unlock this real-world data and the regulatory roadblocks that is stopping them from actually being utilized for secondary purposes. Right, so just to recap, we had the patient data, we had the AI that matches them to clinical trials and real-world evidence. But what happens here is sort of basically our secret sauce, where we can do an on-premise de-identification, right? So before any other model is implemented, we first de-identify, anonymize, pseudonymize the data on premises before it leaves the hospitals. Next, we have an anonymized active linkage solution where it can create a holistic patient profiles from all of the databases that are available of the patient, right? If you have to think about the EHR systems, it's not just one database that contains all of the information. There's multiple databases over different locations. Data is stored in so many different formats. So actually structuring this data and making it gather around one patient, that's sort of where we shine and basically structure the data too. So it's usable for secondary use cases. And we do this by making longitudinal patient records and enabling the individuals themselves that if they want, they can take action and actually claim their own data. And thanks to GDPR, now we have that human rights to actually claim our data. So we help healthcare organizations be able to actually enforce and implement GDPR solutions in their own organizations. Well, lastly, our proprietary cryptographic technology enables this connection of databases over multiple institutes without actually having to move the data. So you can learn from patient, you can run your models over multiple organizations without actually having to move the data around. And that's sort of another area that we got a European award for our technology in collaboration with NVIDIA. I tried to not make it too nerdy. I still did it, I think. So how does it look like in form of a software, right? Like all of that conversation, to put it in one application, it's an interface for the clinical research nurses or PIs that are actually looking for patients from their own patient cohorts, from their own hospitals, right? So they can upload their protocols, the protocols that they have. They don't have to write it in SQL queries. They don't have to do any programming. They just upload a protocol. We can make sense of that and make a search query that then goes into the patient files. And then they are provided with a sort of criteria by criteria explanation, whether this patient actually meets that criteria, yes or no. Why do the patient meet it, right? So an explanation. So it's not just a black box. It's an explainable AI. And the source, so the citation of where in the patient file it was found. So all the doctor needs to do, just verify this information. It's the doctor's job to actually finally make the call, right? So it's not a clinical decision tool, it's a clinical decision support system. And further, the researchers can provide feedback how the model performed, and that gets fed back to the model and improves the model so you can learn from the actual doctors as they're operating with the system. This helps with providing patients that are already above 90% matching score. So instead of going through hundreds of thousands of patients, you start with the top 10 or top 20 that you were actually looking for. And this helps life science organizations like pharmaceutical companies and contract research organizations to actually know which hospitals they can work with. Is the patient actually available in that hospital that I'm going to select as a trial site or not, right? So it's a multi-stakeholder solution. So where we are standing right now, we are already live at multiple sites here in the Netherlands, and we have already matched hundreds of patients with above 90% accuracy in matters of minutes, instead of it taking years. We signed an agreement with the electronic health record provider of 54 hospitals that helps us actually put our solution into the EHR. So for the future hospitals, they can start using our platform literally with a click of a button inside the interface that they're already familiar with. So that also helps speed up our sales cycles. And lastly, another part that I'm personally proud of, this is our proprietary cryptography technology. This is a novel confidential federated learning solution that was validated, and Google reached out to us and they want to work with us to further develop this solution. This is the A-Star team that I'm really proud of, very multidisciplinary. So we have Sarah from bioinformatics, nanobiology, and genomic privacy background, who's our CTO. Hanneke with 30 years of experience in clinical trials. She has run a clinical trial matching recruitment before herself without the technology. So basically now we're enabling her to also reach her dreams. Cybersecurity, privacy, and AI engineers, and sort of I call her a Swiss Army knife of everything legal, from contract to IB to data privacy. But we're also surrounded by sort of the gray hair people who have been in this industry for long, from executive board members of Philips to the largest data privacy firm of Europe. And with that, this is helping us reach the vision we have had for this company from the get-go, because we want to make personalized health accessible and equitable for everyone globally. What we mean by that is the world of precision medicine and personalized medicine has been more or less predominantly at the research side or available only to a few who actually can afford having that. We want to make that accessible, and we want to make it equitable, meaning that we want to bring these solutions to people worldwide so that every people group are represented in the data sets that are used to actually create these models. So that's sort of the background story of OASYS Now. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer them.